The latest on the Big 12 and a timeline, plus recruiting news and a football update. You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the Yukon Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a quick moment to ask you for a small favor. If you're enjoying the content here, please take a second to subscribe to the show and follow the audio versions wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever else. It really helps the show grow. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support. It means the world to me, and it keeps us going strong every day. Thanks, everyone, for sending me fun messages this week in regards to the Big 12 stuff, some positive, some negative. But that's what we've signed up for. So really, thank you so much for being a part of this community, good, bad, or indifferent. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. All right, guys. So what went from a rumor from a source that I received, and I've chronicled this on a few different podcasts, so if you've heard this before, I apologize. But the reality is, some of it is I want to set the record straight on a lot of this stuff. Some of it is misinformation that people have said about me, that a lot of this was just clickbait, or my sources are people that and I'm kind of just turning this around. We confirmed that there was a push for UConn going to the Big 12, that was going to imminently happen last Tuesday. The word that everyone is falling on is imminent. So if that's what you're worried about, then I will 100%. I was wrong on that it was not imminent, but the source was correct that this news was dropping, and we talked about it on Tuesday. So we were 3 days early, and I got killed for that. Vindicated on Friday with a confirmed story from my own source, and started to backtrack on, whether or not this was something that had volition in terms of what was happening next, right? The timeline of, is this going to happen with votes? So I turned to him and asked those questions. He confirmed to me that he felt like there was 12 votes to be had. He has since recanted that. And I wanted to talk to you quickly about how this all came about. So, and really just give my final opinion on any and all of this Big 12 stuff, because I'm tired of talking about it myself. And for those of you who are going to hear that comment and say, didn't you start it? Well, I didn't, because UConn and the Big 12 has started this months ago, and I was told what was happening. First, we talked about it, and then it was confirmed. And when I realized that my source was right about the Big 12 meetings and everything that goes in it, but was wrong about the imminent vote and that this was 100% happening, I haven't put anything out to say the same thing. So what did we do? We brought in Ross Dellinger, who is the number one source on realignment. Anyone with half a brain knows that. That's not enough? Well, I'm bringing in Justin Williams, who is a contributor on the New York Times story of the same title, that UConn is seriously considering joining the Big 12 if it gets offered. So, and if you don't know Justin, he writes for The Athletic. He's going to be on tomorrow. We're going to tape in the afternoon. Andrew Marchand was the larger named reporter, if you will, on that New York Times story on this. So, but that's enough of that. No matter where you stand as a UConn fan, one thing we can all agree on is that it's absolutely wild and kind of crazy how everyone has completely lost their minds over whether this makes sense for UConn, exploring its options, essentially, right? And if you're upset at me for saying this was a done deal, be upset. I've already said I'm sorry. You were also upset when I thought this when I told you that this was going to happen, and you didn't think it was, because nobody in the national media had it early, and maybe they did, and they were sitting on it and confirming a couple things, and that's a story for another day. I know some of the folks who talk about the ACC might think differently, but there's always this mantra of, well, let's hold off. UConn is a basketball school. Don't mess with happy. It's that I can't stand that phrase, especially in something like this. if you don't mess with Happy and you're stuck playing UMass as your biggest rival because you're in no man's land, you're not in a power 4 and eventually will be a power 3 and maybe eventually a power 2, you can't be left behind on this. So really trying to understand why people have that thought process that UConn is a basketball school. Forget about football. So is Kansas. So is Duke. So is Arizona. So is Carolina. So is Kentucky. They're all basketball schools. It's ridiculous. They've just been so happen to have been in leagues that have more history when it comes to football. The Big East, when they had teams that were football related and that were more football powers in the days of West Virginia and Miami and even Florida State before they defected to the ACC, Boston College, these were good football programs. But I want to take a step back and remind everyone what UConn has accomplished. Basically out of nothing. We built a men's basketball program out of thin air with the patriarch, Jim Calhoun, and turned it into the best basketball program of the past 30 years. And the ultimate blue blood, winning all their national titles, coming in a competitive and tough era. Same with the women's basketball program. The best women's basketball program of all time with the greatest coach of all time, Gino Auriemma. Both are the odds-on favorite to win a national championship again next year. Would be a third straight for the men, and a 12th title for the women, and do something that no other team has done with titles, men's and women's basketball. They are going for their third opportunity to win titles in the same year as a collective. We are the basketball capital of the world. The baseball team competing in the Northeast of all places, where you don't play baseball all year round, has made it to 2 super regionals in the last 3 years. Oh, and do you see a pattern? Because that was built from nothing too. How many D2 transfers did we have on the team last year? 20? Our soccer program, national champions. Also from nothing. Field hockey team, 5 national championships. Women's soccer, 7 Final Fours. No matter what UConn does, stay in the Big East, decide to jump to the Big 12. We've got a track record to show that we're going to figure it out. We're going to find the right people. We're going to figure out how to get this paid for, how to, get all of the ducks in a row. And my immediate reaction is kind of disgust, because people that are saying that you can't do this, that it's a sham, we're going to turn to the ACC. Why? Because it's difficult and hard? Does that mean you just don't do it? That's how great things happen. From struggle. You struggle, and then you achieve something great. That's 100% why I want them to do it. Because I would love to say UConn football is on par with the basketball team, or at least competitive, and is playing in the Big 12 and playing against bigger competition. So that the rest of the athletic programs can benefit from it from a financial perspective. That's what this school has always been about. And that's not changing. The landscape of college athletics is. But the spirit of UConn in how they do things and how they create championships and have the best players and coaches and staff and organizations in the country, that's not changing. When we come back, let's talk quickly about football and updates there. You're on Locked On. Hey, everyone. So, I'm all about live events. We've talked about this with the Game Time app, whether it's catching a game, seeing a concert, or just getting out for a fun night. I've had some unforgettable experiences, and I'm always excited to make more. Lastly, I've been messing around with this Game Time app, just kind of, you scroll through your phone, just seeing how it works, just so we have a better idea of how to talk to you guys about how to search for these games. Let me tell you, I took a Diamondbacks versus Dodgers game in LA, and even though it's not an event I'm planning going to because I don't live in that area, these are awesome deals. So it cuts through the clutter. It shows you the best deals out there. So whatever game or area you're looking in, you're going to find the same kind of offers that I found, but in a game you want, whether you're in New England, you want Red Sox tickets, Yankee tickets, Mets tickets. If you're in the South and you want Braves tickets, it's all there. The app also lets you see your exact view from your seat before you buy. So if you're thinking about catching a game or a show, why not give it a try? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Seriously, what are you waiting for? Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege. Don't miss out. You're not finding these deals on other sites. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We have something a little different for you now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a three-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's huge value. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game, and all you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. That's the best thing about this, is if you love it, great, you keep it. If you don't like it, you can cancel. Just another perk from FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Football is back. We have a game this Saturday at noon against Maryland. Let's get you ready. I know we're going to do a Football Friday, but I had to talk about just some latest developments. Nick Evers was named the starting QB. The four-star recruit, former Oklahoma four-star recruit, is made a stop in Wisconsin before coming with the Huskies, but he is the guy for Jim Mora. Jim Mora said this at his press conference. I think he did it like halfway through the press conference, so it wasn't like the topic of the day. But I know some people were asking about that and where they were going to go. And I said this on the first football show we did 2 weeks ago. You don't get this guy, use the NIL money to bring in a talent like this, and then sit him behind someone else. That's just the reality. And even before I get into football, do you guys like my home field sweatshirt? If you're interested in checking out home field and you need a promo code, use Yukon24. Check it out. I love my home field stuff. Got the football box. Thank you to home field for that. Let's talk about if UConn was to win, what needs to happen. So why they would win and why, if they lose, is the reason. I'll give you the reasons why. So the first is, do they really have a real shot at winning? I think they do. They're a 20-point underdog. So it would be a huge upset. But in this age of college athletics, where you can remake your entire roster, excuse me, taking a drink of water, in an off season with something like 40, 50 new people, which is what UConn has done. And UConn struggled last year to move the ball. And I think the best thing about Nick Evers is the dual threat aspect. I know all these guys can have a little bit of that, but I think Nick is more dynamic out of the pocket. So I would expect them to be doing a lot of RPO, and he is a serious upgrade in talent. So bringing in a skill set that can finally give this offense some balance. They obviously have some good running backs. Plus, UConn didn't stop at just upgrading the quarterback spot. They brought in some solid receivers from the transfer portal. Kid from Purdue, that's name has escaped me off the top of my head. We're going to do a deeper dive on Friday. But I really want to focus on Nick Evers. He's got the type of game with the combination of Cam Edwards, Victor Rosa, and others in the run game. And you've got an offense that can keep the defense guessing. So it's not like you can just tee off on the running game and then play press coverage. They have the ability to beat you deep with some burners. They have the ability to kind of hit you underneath with some possession receivers. I really feel strongly that Evers is going to be able to control the tempo of this game. And he doesn't need to go for like 400 yards passing. Be nice. But I don't think that's what the coaching staff wants to do here. I think what they're going to have to do if they're going to win is control clock, is control tempo. So it doesn't mean you can't speed things up every once in a while. That's one thing I do love about kind of the college game, which is you can get everyone up to the line and they kind of just like relax. Now you can have communication in the helmet, so there's no sign stealing. I just saw that documentary. Wow, that was cool. But yeah, I mean, like there's a good opportunity for them to put their mark on this college football season if they can control the clock, dictate tempo, and that could be the difference maker in a tight game. So if they keep it close, expect them to continue to drain clock, run the ball, play action, try to take a few shots when they can. Maybe try to flip the field in that respect. But I would expect a kind of conservative-esque kind of feel out the game play calling from Jim Mora in terms of, are they going to go for it, and, die quickly, or are they going to try to really, or win quickly and get out to a big lead and see if they can hold on? Anything can happen. It's the first game of the season. I think that's also the part of it too. There's no preseason in college football. So all you've done in the offseason camp is play against your teammates. So I think that's working in favor of the Huskies here, where if they're going to come in and sneak up on someone, Maryland would be a good Big Ten opponent to take down. So just to remind everybody, as you know, college football is back. We're talking about it. It's not too late to catch up before the season kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big Ten, Big 12. You can get it all from Locked On's stable of college experts by subscribing to Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conferences? Everything you need to know in all in one place. Be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On College Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, I just gave you the positives. Why they won't win is UConn's defense is likely to struggle in creating pressure on the backfield. They lost a lot of players. They have an entire fresh set of linebackers in a secondary that's still really searching for solid corners. Maryland's offense could have plenty of opportunity to exploit those weaknesses, at least the perceived weaknesses, right? The Terrapins are stacked with receivers who can stretch the field. Most notably, Billy Edwards Jr. Has the arm to capitalize on that. So their quarterback is going to take advantage, making it super easy for him to connect on some big plays if all things go according to plan. But like I said, this is why they play the games. Maryland's defense should be able to handle the rest. Should be able to, right? Putting them in a strong position for success. I think we're going to have a full Maryland UConn preview, including scores and predictions when we do the Football Friday show. But when we return, let's talk recruiting and what I know, what I've heard. I do have a quick scoop. It's not about a 2025 recruit, but it's about a 26 recruit that you probably have not heard of unless you're a diehard recruiting fan. So let's talk about that when we return. Ever hit that afternoon slump? I know I have. In fact, you guys have seen me. I've been dubbed by few the yawning podcaster. So you know what helps me push through? Trust me, 5-hour energy. It gets me going for, right from the endless to-do list or powering through a workout or getting through a podcast after working all day. And whether I'm catching the big game or staying up late, it keeps me alert and in the zone. Plus, with zero sugar and flavors like watermelon and tropical burst, there's something for everyone. Head over to the website where you can even customize your own 12 or 24 pack. So what are you waiting for? Try 5-hour energy today. Okay, segment 3 coming up now. Locked on UConn. We've talked Big 12 drama, the timeline there, what to expect. I don't expect anything new coming down the pike anytime soon. As soon as I know something, you'll know something. We will have a guest in Justin Williams tomorrow to talk exactly about where things stand currently. And we talked about UConn football and their upcoming matchup against Maryland. That will continue on Friday. But wanted to give you some recruiting updates on the men's basketball front. I received a DM from a recruiting expert recruiting at the high school level to kind of give me a little scoop. And it's nothing big deal, but it's all relevant. So he told me that Mika Mirinen, the Finnish power forward, has been not eyeing UConn, but is likely going to make a visit with the UConn Huskies, and he's a 2026 recruit. So as is kind of customary for Dan Hurley, he really doesn't give offers to 2026 or year ahead quite frequently. So, but wanted to give you guys a kind of a taste of what this is, if you want to, or what he's like, if you want to look him up. He's a Finnish power forward. Like I said, hopefully I'm saying his name right. I've heard it said this way, and I've butchered names before. Mika Mirinen, 6'10". He's known for his quickness, mobility, and impressive offensive capabilities. He's a great shooter, passer, and he actually can handle the rock quite well. Particularly effective in face-up situations, so that fits Dan Hurley and his concepts. And he can break down defenders and find his shot or drive to the basket. So he's kind of a stretch 3. And what I mean by that is I feel like he could potentially be a small forward or a slight power forward, meaning in weight. So he's been heating up with visits scheduled to some of the biggest programs. He recently visited Kentucky. No shock there. He's lined up visits with Duke and Michigan. I think he's deciding on Carolina and UConn next. And he's very sought after. Each of these schools see big-time potential in him to be a game changer at the collegiate level, clearly. And that would be for the 2026 recruiting class. His NBA comp is an easy one. Lauri Markkanen. Both players share similar attributes, height, skilled big men from Finland with the ability to stretch the floor and handle the ball. Markkanen obviously played for Arizona, and Lauri is a 7-footer, and Muranen is 6'10", 6'11", so a slight difference there. But Muranen is really known for his mobility, so I think that's a good fit, and it's really just, I mean, they almost look like clones or cousins of each other. They have shooting, they have positional versatility, Dan Hurley's buzzword, and honestly, it makes them both a offensive threat from both inside and outside the paint. So that's why the comparison is there. I think they share a European style background, playing style. I would love to see Dan Hurley grab one of these Euro players and kind of see what he can do, considering what Luke Murray loves to do, that with Turkish basketball influence, with FIBA and other video and film that he watches from around the world. So would love to see Mika Muranen as a Husky. Keep that name in your thoughts. We'll be hearing more about him. I think no matter where he goes, we'll eventually see him in the NBA, no doubt. And then someone that's close to home, a Connecticut-bred kid, Abdu Torre. I know Kamani Young and his and the staff has gone down. I don't think they've gone down to Notre Dame West Haven, although I feel like I've heard conflicting. They haven't offered him again because he's a 26 class member, but they love him. He's quickly making a name for himself as a high major talent. He is truly versatile. He would be the perfect wing, 6'6". He can handle the ball a little bit. You could probably play him at the combo guard too. Has some phenomenal athleticism, good scoring ability. He excels as a slasher, really gets downhill quickly with that explosive first step, and has that strength to finish in contact or through contact at the rim. He's an above the rim type player, so he'd be a fan favorite. Probably dunking on people the way we saw Isaiah Abraham in the open scrimmage. Great transition game player. Whether he's running the break or finishing in traffic, I think he thrives with the ball in his hands. So I think one of the challenges maybe with him would be kind of getting him used to this off the ball sometime mentality. But he's improving as a shooter, so he can play off the ball. He's a capable 3-point shooter. I wouldn't call him excellent or plus, but he has the quickness that makes him a really solid defender and rebounder. So he has that scoring and positional versatility that Dan Hurley loves. He obviously can score in multiple ways, behind the arc, driving to the basket. He can finish at the rim, as we talked about, above the rim player through contact, plus athleticism, plus transition play. Consistency in shooting is one of the minuses, and would love to see him work on his shooting stroke. That will come with time. He's not a complete offensive player. I think that's a minus as well. And also, high school player, decision-making, like many young players, he really kind of can make some silly rush mistakes, but especially when he's under pressure. So the comparison really for him from an NBA perspective is the Zach LaVine or Jimmy Butler, similar type build. He has a physicality to slash to the hoop. The Jimmy Butler one I like more because if you remember Jimmy Butler when he was in college, he wasn't a finished product, obviously, and has only gotten better as time went on. So he's been heavily recruited as well. Programs like Syracuse, Texas A&M, Louisville, UConn is definitely showing interest, although they haven't extended an official offer yet. We just talked about why. But given his trajectory and him being a homegrown talent, I would be shocked if we weren't all over him. But if we're not, think about it from this perspective. Obviously, Dan made a joke on draft night. Donovan Clingan had to be a Husky or the whole staff was going to get fired. If he's essentially a generational type player in Connecticut, they will get him. If he is a great player and they feel like they like him, but they don't love him, then they'll offer him and we'll see what happens. We'll see if things get to that point. But I've heard nothing but good things about him. So we will see. He's in West Haven, I believe, at Notre Dame. Yes, I believe so. Well, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I really appreciate you guys listening to all the Big 12 stuff. I know it's not your favorite topic. Truth be told, it is not my favorite topic. I want to talk about what I just talked about. I want to talk about the future of the Husky basketball team. I want to get ready for talking about the women's team, which when we're going to start our women's show in about a month. I want to talk about UConn football, believe it or not, once a week about the pregame and a little bit on Monday talking about the postmortem. And I want to talk about interviewing great people, bringing in some guys. We're trying to get Ada Mahaney on. We're trying to get other players so you guys can hear from these Huskies and really do that. So I hope you guys stick around for the future of Locked On UConn, which is bright, as well as covering everything. I'm going to cover all the stories. I'm not going to ignore stuff, and we will move forward. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure that toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies, baby.